All right, what is up, everybody? It is JJ Buckets, and I'm back with my favorite guest. Well, frankly, I like at this point my only guest that keeps coming back to the channel. How you doing, Waraich?
Hey, I'm doing great. How are you doing, JJ?
Not too bad. I'm living in Ontario, so it's awful. But besides for that, things could be worse. Things could be worse. Still got the Raptors to keep me going through it all, even though can't go watch them live just yet. But yeah, with due time.
hmm
In the meantime, though, can always talk about them, right? So
Absolutely.
with the Toronto Raptors, we are heading closer and closer to the trade deadline. And I think you can tell we're heading closer and closer to the trade deadline because I feel like with every passing weeks, the rumors slowly kind of start to creep up a little bit louder, a little bit more. All of a sudden, you start hearing more and more names. And, I'm thinking specifically about the Raptors in this case, but like there are, just a lot of other teams where that's the case too, where it's like the closer you get to the deadline, the more you just hear the murmurings. And the trade deadline for the Raptors should be interesting this year because as it stands right now at the time of this recording, the Raptors are sitting in a play-in seat, more or less kind of where I personally expected them, based on the results that we were seeing. But they're not convincingly holding it down right now. Like they've had some obviously good stretches and they've even had some impressive losses. But for the most part, it does seem like they're kind of in that in between right now where, a move one way or the other at the deadline could help push them that way. So, with that being said, what kind of move are we talking here? That is my question for you today. Should the Raptors be buyers or sellers come deadline time? And I'm going to kick it over to you because I need a drink after talking for that long.
So I think the Raptors should be buyers. I've always said this. I think the Raptors roster is way too talented to be sellers unless you're trading off some bench pieces like Malachi Flynn. Obviously, we know Chris Boucher is being there's some rumors about him being available in a trade, and then we have the Goran Dragic situation, which is obviously he's very likely to be moved or bought out if he doesn't get moved. So I think besides those guys, they definitely should be buyers. I think the Raptors should be looking to add to their roster. They have an amazing starting five of the small ball lineup we continuously go with. Obviously, we know Gary Trent is injured at the moment, but that starting lineup, I feel like it's doing a great job. They do have some certain needs for this team. I don't know if they'll be able to I should say, fix all of those issues through the NBA trade deadline because it's easier said than done. We can sit here and say we need to trade for a center, we need a bench, but it's much easier said than done. And we know Masai Ujiri never really makes a trade for the sake of making a trade. So that is one thing we do have to keep in mind. We can be buyers all we want, but it's not a championship bust season. So if there's a deal that could help this team grow in the future, I think definitely he'll make it. I don't think he's
Internet, hello.
yeah.
Okay, there we
Hello.
go. We're back. We're back. All right, had a little bit of disruptions there, but I think I caught for the most part the fact that yes, it's obviously not a championship or bust. And if they are going to be buyers, they're going to be buyers for forward-thinking moves, coupled with, potentially some things to help here while getting rid of obviously some guys that you don't really need on this team. Um, that's kind of more or less what I caught, even in between all the disruptions. Correct me if I'm wrong or tell me if I
No,
missed anything.
no, you're dead on. You're dead on. That's exactly what I was saying.
Cool, cool. Um, yeah, I mean, I'm kind of with you for the most part. I'm all, despite the fact that we're obviously having this conversation today, I'm almost scared to think that it might be a quiet deadline for the Raptors, which I hope it's not because I'm kind of in the similar boat to you where I think they should be buyers, but I'd say in the right, even I guess subgenre or whatever you want to call it of the buyers market. Um,
Mhm.
but yeah, like just I wouldn't want to see this roster just hold pat as it is because they are possibly legitimately one or two good moves away from you know giving themselves a chance to give their young guys some playoff experience, get in some real competition. And I mean, realistically, they're probably a first round out. But I mean, it'll still be good to get some of those guys that haven't had that experience in the playoffs a chance to really grow, or at least even for the guys that have been there, a chance to be there in their new roles with this new team, gel that chemistry further. Yeah, just I'd like to see them make a buy to make a push. There's been a lot of good names thrown around, and I'll save that for a future day because so many things can change between now and the deadline. But the Raptors have their eyes set on people. I mean, I've obviously just made the video where they were looking at Miles Turner and Karis LeVert. I actually personally think, by the sound of it, that the price for Turner, could be a little too steep. But at the same time, there's plenty of opportunity, I would say, at this deadline to potentially add somebody in particular at the 5. You've heard a lot of names tossed around with the Raptors. And again, I'm not going to lean in any direction, but just a couple of the names that we've obviously heard out there. Miles Turner, you've seen Mo Bamba in conversations, you've seen Jakob Poeltl surface in conversations, and I feel like this one was a little bit more fan driven, but I feel like I've also seen Jonas Valanciunas pop up into those conversations. In general, though, just any move to kind of either shore up the defensive rebounding and kind of interior paint defense, or obviously a move to help the bench scoring, because there's not a lot of scoring coming off that bench outside of Chris Boucher, who's also hit and miss in himself. So yeah, just one of those two needs I'd really like to see addressed. You were talking about a lot of the pieces. You obviously have Goran, that can be a nice contributor to a championship team, or sorry, not necessarily a championship team, but to just a team looking to contend. Or on the flip side of things, you can send him to a team that wants an expiring contract and wants the cap relief. And then, yeah, obviously Boucher, we've heard, is available. Malachi, in all likelihood, I don't see in the long-term plans here. So there's some names to throw around, and I'd like to see them thrown around. I don't want to see this deadline just come and go uneventfully. I think that's my only thing, and it scares me because I think there's a chance that that really might be the case.
So hold on, I got a question for you. So are you saying you would move Malachi Flynn?
I mean, he's really fallen out of favor, as much as I do hate to say it. Would I, if some team, Lord knows who, but if there's some team out there sitting there looking at Malachi like he's a highly touted young prospect and the difference team making a good deal, absolutely. I'm so sorry, but make that trade. Malachi, I would be shocked at this point if he's in serious long-term plans around here.
But here's the thing, JJ. Wouldn't you want to trade a player when his value is a little bit higher? Because I'm actually on the fence about this, and people are going to go at me in the comment section. You can come back to this video about 5 months from now. I think Malachi Flynn is having that sophomore. I think Malachi Flynn has really struggled this year, but I think he's going to come back stronger next year. And I know obviously it's not a great thing you want to hear from, well, your player's struggling this year, he's going to come back stronger. But I really do. I think his skill set wise is similar to Fred VanVleet. Obviously not at that level, of course. But in terms of some of the things he does, I think you could compare him to Fred VanVleet in terms of shooting. He's not a great passer like Fred VanVleet. I mean, I know Fred is just coming off a night where he had 10 plus assists, but just in terms of some of the skill sets, I think it's better to hold on to Malachi Flynn. But I do agree. I think some of the guys like Chris Boucher and Goran Dragic have to be moved just because they are expiring contracts. And Chris Boucher is definitely going to be trying to at least get that bag this money. So I think it makes sense to move him. But here's the thing. I got a question for you. Would you move Chris Boucher for the sake of moving him? Like, let's say a team offered you an expiring contract and it's a bench player, expiring contract, and they give you a second round draft pick. Would you do that deal?
See, it's interesting because I feel like the way I feel about Boucher, or at least the way these things and these conversations are unfolding a little bit, kind of reminds me of Norman Powell a bit, where you kind of mentioned it, right? Like Chris Boucher right now, his contract is fairly light. And I wouldn't be surprised either if he pursued something a little more hefty. Obviously, there's enough teams in the league that I'm sure he could talk one of them into, paying him more. My goodness, I did not know why that was a tongue twister, but I'm sure some team will throw him the bag out there, or at least a better bag than Toronto can offer. So if you're Masai and you just don't have any considerable plans whatsoever to pay Boucher, and how like even as an extension from that, maybe you just want Boucher out of there so you can give Precious a few more minutes to kind of develop or whatever the case there is. I don't want to say I'd move him for the sake of moving him, but at the same time, I would I'd be surprised if Boucher is here past deadline day. I think if any move is going to happen, Boucher is definitely at the forefront of it.
Yeah, no, I agree. I definitely agree. I don't think it doesn't seem like Masai Ujiri wants to. And given the Raptors salary cap situation as well, I don't think they can necessarily afford to pay Chris Boucher $12-13 million a year. Man, I think he's very likely to be moved as well. But when I get another question for you, my internet connection is just completely gone, isn't it? Can you hear me now? We good?
Yeah, we're good now, but your internet has not been your friend this recording.
My internet connection is more unstable than the Raptors bench. But just in terms of Chris Boucher and
oh, that's rough.
Yeah. So just in terms of Chris Boucher, I think obviously I can see him being moved, but do you see any scenario in where the Raptors could be sellers? And I'm going to throw a name out there because I see this because of the contract that Masai Ujiri gave him, and it just doesn't warrant a lot of confidence in the fact that the Raptors have long-term plans for this player. But Gary Trent Jr., do you see any for a piece they really desperately need?
I do think Gary Trent Jr. has again, he's somebody that's won me over. I know we've had this discussion before, not completely, don't get me wrong, but he's won me over enough to think that you want to see where this guy will be in a couple of years. So I would be surprised, very surprised, if Gary Trent Jr. is a name that they flip. I could only see them doing that in a situation where the deal is just simply too good to pass up, and somebody sees Gary Trent Jr. like, I don't know, what's a young player with like a ridiculous ceiling off the top of my head? I don't know. I mean, I'm sure nobody's going to be looking at Gary Trent Jr. like Luka Doncic or something like that. But if somebody sees him as, a potential young star in the making, and they're offering, their own young star that's disgruntled or something of the sort, just a scenario that's too good to pass
Collins. up. John Collins. Just joking. I don't see that happening, but
I don't know about that one, John. That's a discussion for another day, because John Collins is a weird fit.
Yes.
But yeah, just if there's a scenario that is too good to pass up, and the moving point on the deal is Gary Trent Jr., I don't think Masai would hesitate to pull the trigger, but I don't think Gary Trent Jr. is somebody that's actively being shopped. While we're talking about the deadline too, because my goodness, I've seen it all over Twitter the past few days, and I just need to say something about it real quick. What is it with Raptors fans and just the sudden, I feel like, well, 360 isn't the expression, it's 180. Sorry. But the sudden 180 that I've seen from about, I'd say about half Raptors fans on OG Anunoby. I've seen so many people just calling for him to get traded if there's an opportunity, that just taking shots at OG left and right. And I remember just waking up one day, going on Twitter, and just seeing these rants going on from both sides, both the sides obviously defending OG and the sides coming at him. And I'm just like, where the hell did this come from? I don't know if it sparked originally with that Miles Turner rumor and the fact that OG was reportedly getting tossed around as a name in there, that it got people thinking, but I am so not a fan of that one.
Okay, this JJ, I was actually thinking about earlier this season because obviously there's a lot of, fans saying trade Pascal, trade Fred VanVleet. And I said it. I said, you know what? Give it time before the fans eventually turn on OG. And I'll say it right now too. Not maybe this season. Give it another season or two before the hate ultimately goes to Scotty Barnes can't do this. I know he's very talented, but it just seems like fans have JJ. Yeah, you can hear me. Okay, we're back.
Yeah.
So I just think this ridiculous hate shifts from one player to another. Now that all right, my internet is gone again. So I just think this hate just shifts from I'm saying okay, my internet frame's going like you're from right here, and then the next frame I see you here because my internet keeps freezing. But I just feel like the fans' hate just kind of shifts from Pascal, Fred to OG, and eventually it's just gonna go into some other guys, just like Gary Trent Jr. and Scott. I mean Gary Trent, we already saw a little bit last season. People are saying he's a chucker, he's shooting too much, he doesn't play great defense, and then a lot of people are eventually. I feel like you're hearing it already. They're saying that Scotty Barnes didn't do a great job of defending Luka because of that one possession. And I think fans just need to relax a little. It's just over quick reactions of, we need to trade him. We need to trade him. This loss is on OG. He can't dribble. He's never going to be a number one option to, fans are saying Scotty Barnes is a cornerstone. And then a few seasons from now, they're going to say he's a bust or, just any mistake you need from a little player they'll pick at. So I think fans need to breathe a little. This isn't NBA 2K, where you just automatically make trades and your team wins a championship. So have some patience. Those OG takes were just absolutely ridiculous. But
Yeah, like I think with all due respect, I think Raptors fans, our fans can be a little fickle sometimes. So just the OG stuff, I don't like it at all. I don't see where the need is to turn on a guy who's an elite defender and ever improving, even if you want to make the case that okay, the jump he's taken isn't as big as you would have hoped for. Sure, but he's still shown improvements. Even if it's not leaps and bounds, we're still getting. I don't know what's smaller than leaps and bounds. I guess just like little hops.
19 points. He's giving little hops. Yes.
Yeah, he's 19 points per game scorer, almost 20 points per game scorer, and people are talking about him like I don't know, like he's still putting up 14 or something. Like OG's consistently gotten better again and again. Obviously his role is getting bigger, which helps as well, but you can see it in his game. There's a little more comfort, I'd say, on the offensive end this year than there have been in the previous few. And I get it. His handle might not be as polished as, some people thought it might be, or his off the dribble, shooting and scoring still needs work. You know what? Give time. As you were saying near the start of the video, it's not like this is a championship or bust season. And OG is on a really team-friendly contract. So I wouldn't want that to be a name that's getting tossed around. And frankly, I don't understand him being vilified at all, frankly. And not that this is an opinion I hold, but frankly, I'm a little more surprised that fans aren't. I haven't heard more talk on, say, the idea of potentially selling high on Pascal Siakam while he's playing well. I'm not necessarily condoning this behavior, but I'm just saying I'm a little more surprised that it's been the OG hate and it hasn't actually been that conversation point with Pascal about selling high.
Don't give them ideas, JJ. Don't give them any ideas. No, you'd be surprised. You'd be surprised. I follow a lot of Raptors communities on different social media pages, and there have been a lot of people when Pascal was going through that stretch of amazing, scoring double digits, getting assists, rebounds. A lot of people were saying trade him for Wiggins and Jonathan Kuminga, and I couldn't. Come on. Jonathan Kuminga is great, but Andrew Wiggins, he's not going to be that player if he comes to the Raptors. But there's still some fans out there. You'd be surprised. There's still some fans saying his value is high, trade him now. So, but yeah.
And with all due respect for Wiggins, who frankly I think has a chance to potentially be an all-star in the West this year, which is crazy to think about. But with all due respect to Wiggins, not the guy I would want to be getting back if you're the Raptors in any kind of Siakam package whatsoever. I mean, Wiggins has been
Mhm.
so good in Golden State because of the insane gravity and the lack of pressure he has playing beside some of the guys that he's playing beside, like a Steph Curry. Obviously, now that Klay Thompson's back, him too. And then obviously Draymond Green and his elite playmaking. It's because Wiggins is being asked in theory to do so little, and because defenses are paying attention to him that he's playing this well. It's one of those things where it's kind of like no, don't fall in love with this idea of Andrew Wiggins. This is not the idea of Andrew Wiggins that we would have on the Raptors. Jonathan Kuminga is another discussion, but that being said, not one I want to have. The amount of just trade packages that I've seen for the Warriors with Pascal heading there, it's just sickening. All in all, though,
It is absolutely.
To kind of bring things back, I think both you and I more or less agree that we want the Raptors to be buyers, but it has to be the right deal. I wouldn't want to see them jumping the gun on something that, could set them back a little bit. I'd rather, if they have their doubts about a certain deal or a certain player that they're going to acquire, I'd rather them, hold on to that extra first round pick, or, hold on, or just let somebody's contract expire and just take that cap space back. Whatever the case is, I want the Raptors to be buyers. I think the Raptors are going to be buyers because I do think they want to compete this year. That feels like the energy with the team. So I'm going to stand by that. They're buyers, but like my last thought on it is just reiterating that they are buyers at the right price. They will not budge on a bad deal, like you were saying, just for the sake of making a deal.
Yeah, no, I'd have to agree with you, JJ. I don't think it makes a lot of sense. Like, I know our bench is terrible. I personally wouldn't want to be giving up second round or even first round picks for someone that can help our bench, but it's an expiring contract. You give up a second round. Makes no sense. You know what? If you're thinking long term, if that player is locked in for a few years and you see a deal there, then maybe perhaps. Or if Masai Ujiri feels like that player can make our bench better for the long term, then it makes sense. But I just don't see a deal happening for an expiring contract and Raptors moving assets or picks for an expiring contract. So I agree. I don't think you should make a deal for the sake of making a deal. If you see a bench piece or just overall a player that you feel like can contribute to the Raptors' success and growth over the next several years, then I'd do it. But otherwise, I would not. All right, JJ, did you get that?
Oh, I mean, like, you're sitting perfectly still. It was remarkable, but the audio is still coming through on my end. So we got you
Okay.
loud and clear, my man.
Okay, that's good. I do apologize. My internet is you would think it's back in the AOL days in 2000s,
Honestly,
This should
man,
not be happening.
with some of the internet speeds I've seen there, you're giving me like flashbacks to my short time lived in Australia, where for those of you that don't know, Australia just does not have good Wi-Fi. I guess you wouldn't really need it, because if you're on an island paradise, who needs the internet half the time? But
I can hear you a little bit, but your face is completely frozen. I don't know if you can hear me, JJ.
It just came through, man. It's all good. We have had a little bit of a rough one with the internet connection today, but that is okay. I feel like the points still came across for the most part, and we had ourselves a good discussion where our final thoughts were the closing thoughts are Raptors are buyers come this deadline, but they're probably going to be stingy buyers. I think that's the expression that we're looking for here, is they're going to be stingy buyers, and they are going to look for a price is right type of trade rather than a go big or go home type of deal.
Yes, you completely froze there, but I heard go big or go home. So yes, I think I get what you're trying to say, JJ.
Oh, it is gonna be really funny watching this for you.
Definitely.
Once this is up on YouTube tomorrow. All right, guys. I think that is gonna do it for us. Obviously, head over to the Waraich Report. Make sure you go watch his video, subscribe to his channel, and if you're visiting my channel here for the first time, obviously do that for me as well. Greatly appreciate it. Makes a massive difference in the algorithm. And yeah, it's been JJ Buckets. the Waraich Report has been with me today. I'm going to say bye on his behalf because I don't know when he's going to cut out. But that is going to do it for us here today. We will see everybody next time.